In the grand halls of ancient Egypt, a shepherd stood before a god-king. This was Moses, a man sent with a divine message, confronting the mighty Pharaoh, who sat draped in gold and arrogance. The air crackled with tension. Before him, the ruler of the known world, whose every whim was law, whose palace gleamed with the wealth of an empire. And facing this earthly deity, a humble man armed only with a staff and a command from a power far greater. "Let my people go." Pharaoh's response was not just a refusal, it was a sneer, a challenge to this unseen god. He saw Moses not as a prophet, but as an agitator, a disruption to his perfectly ordered world built on the backs of slaves. The contrast was stark, the simple faith of Moses against the overwhelming earthly power of Pharaoh. This was more than a negotiation. It was the opening act of a divine drama, a clash of wills that would shake an empire to its very foundations and decide the fate of an entire people. The request was made, the line was drawn, and Pharaoh, in his pride, had no idea of the storm that was about to break. Instead of freedom, Pharaoh's answer was cruelty. His heart, described as hardened, became a fortress of stone against any plea for mercy. He saw the request for a 3-day journey to worship as a sign of idleness, an excuse born from laziness. And his solution was not just to deny their request, but to punish them for even daring to ask. A new decree echoed from the throne room, a command designed to crush their spirits entirely. "You are lazy, lazy," he declared. "No more will straw be provided for your bricks. Let them go and gather it themselves." But, and here was the venom in his command, the quota of bricks will not be reduced. It was an impossible task, a deliberate escalation. This wasn't just about maintaining a workforce, it was a show of absolute power. Pharaoh was making a statement. "You are mine, your labor is mine, your suffering is my decree." The conflict had now moved beyond a simple refusal. It had become a calculated act of oppression, designed to break the will of a people and prove the futility of their hope. The weight of the empire was about to come crashing down upon them. The decree descended like a shroud over the land of Goshen. The air, once filled with the rhythmic chants of labor, was now thick with groans of despair. The brick pits, already a symbol of their bondage, became a living nightmare. Under the searing Egyptian sun, the Hebrew slaves toiled, their bodies aching, their muscles screaming in protest. They were masters of their craft, turning mud and clay into the building blocks of Pharaoh's glory. But now, the familiar rhythm was broken. The straw, the essential binding agent that held the bricks together, was gone. The piles of readily available material vanished overnight. The foreman's shouts grew harsher, laced with the panic of an impossible demand. The quota remained the same, an unyielding number that mocked their struggle. Every brick they failed to make was a mark against them, a promise of punishment to come. The suffering was no longer just the background noise of their existence. It was the very air they breathed, the mud that caked their hands, and the hopelessness that clouded their eyes. The brick pits had become a crucible of pain, a testament to Pharaoh's hardening heart. Desperation drove them out from the pits and into the fields. The organized labor of brickmaking devolved into a frantic scramble. Men, women, and even children scattered across the harvested lands of Egypt like ants, their backs bent, their eyes scanning the ground. They were searching for stubble, the leftover stalks of grain left behind after the harvest. Anything they could find, dry grass, weeds, any fibrous material was gathered in their arms. It was a humiliating and exhausting task. They had to travel farther and farther, spending precious time and energy that should have been used for making the bricks themselves. The sun beat down on them relentlessly as they gleaned the fields, their hands raw from pulling at the tough, dry stalks. Each bundle of stubble they collected felt pitifully small, a meager offering against the mountain of their required quota. This was the genius of Pharaoh's cruelty. He had turned their work into a frantic, impossible race against time, forcing them to provide the very materials of their own oppression. Their unity was shattered, their energy depleted, and their focus torn between two impossible tasks. The people were being systematically broken. The end of the day brought no rest, only a reckoning. As the sun set, casting long shadows over the brickyards, the impossible became reality. The quotas were not met. The Egyptian taskmasters, armed with rods and whips, descended upon the Hebrew foremen. These foremen were not Egyptians. They were Hebrews themselves, appointed to oversee their own people. They were caught in an impossible position, trapped between the brutal demands of their masters and the physical limits of their brothers. Now, they paid the price for the shortfall. The sickening thud of wood against flesh echoed through the pits. Cries of pain mingled with the taunts of the taskmasters. "Why have you met your quota of bricks today, as you did before?" The beatings were a brutal, public spectacle of injustice, a clear message that failure, no matter how inevitable, would be met with violence. After the punishment, a delegation of these beaten foremen made their way to the palace. They sought an audience with Pharaoh himself, clinging to a desperate hope that if the king only understood their plight, he might show mercy. They fell before him, their bruised bodies a testament to their suffering. "Why do you treat your servants this way?" they pleaded. But Pharaoh's face was a mask of indifference. He turned away, his voice cold and dismissive. "Lazy, that's what you are," he repeated, sealing their fate. Their appeal was rejected. Their pain was ignored. The highest authority in the land had personally sanctioned their abuse, leaving them with absolutely nowhere to turn. The foremen stumbled away from the palace, their bodies aching, their hopes utterly crushed. As they journeyed back to Goshen, their path crossed with two figures waiting in the shadows, Moses and Aaron. The sight of the two brothers ignited a firestorm of bitterness and rage. The foremen, representing the weary and beaten people, rounded on them. Their voices were thick with anguish and accusation. "May the Lord look on you and judge you." They cried out, "You have made us a stench to Pharaoh and his officials and have put a sword in their hand to kill us." In their eyes, Moses was not a deliverer. He was the cause of their intensified suffering before his arrival. Their bondage was a bitter but known reality. Now, thanks to his intervention, their lives had become an unbearable torment. They were isolated, trapped. Their masters beat them, and now, their own leaders blamed them. The very people Moses had come to save now saw him as their enemy. For Moses and Aaron, this was perhaps the cruelest blow of all. To be rejected by Pharaoh was expected, but to be rejected by their own suffering kinsmen was a profound and lonely burden. The weight of their mission suddenly felt impossibly heavy. Driven from the presence of his people, rejected and blamed, Moses sought the only refuge he had left. He went out alone, away from the cries of the brick pits and the accusing eyes of the foremen, into the vast, silent emptiness of the desert. The landscape that had once been the backdrop for his quiet life as a shepherd now became his sanctuary, the place where he could pour out the agony of his soul. He was utterly alone, a leader with no followers, a messenger whose message had brought only more pain. He lifted his voice not in anger or doubt, but in a raw, honest plea to the God who had sent him. "Lord, why have you brought this trouble on this people? Is this why you sent me?" It was a question born of deep anguish. "Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has brought trouble on this people. And you have not rescued your people at all." This was not a loss of faith, but a cry for understanding, a moment of profound spiritual struggle. In the immense quiet of the desert, surrounded by sand and stars, Moses laid his broken heart and the suffering of his people before the divine. It was the lowest point, a moment of complete human helplessness, a final plea from the wilderness before the storm of divine power would finally answer. This prayer, offered in desperation, was the turning point, the quiet moment that preceded the thunder. Thanks for watching. If you found this story powerful, consider subscribing for more.